Elena looked back at the Great Hall, then at Arya. I need to think about it. My family is here, my life. I understand, Arya said sincerely. But if you ever need a home, you know where to find me. As they parted, Arya took one last look at Marcus, who stood on the Great Hall steps watching her leave. There was so much pain in his eyes, so much regret. Once, that look would have broken her heart. Now, it just made her sad. Sad for what could have been, for the love that had died in betrayal's fire. But she wasn't broken. She was reborn. The Silver Luna led her wolves into the forest, heading back to the wasteland that was no longer cursed but transformed into something new. A place where outcasts became family, where the broken became whole, where the discarded became precious. Behind her, the pack world would never be the same. She had shaken the foundations, challenged the old ways, and proven that even the weakest could rise to become the strongest. And somewhere in the wasteland, in the sanctuary she had built, a new chapter was beginning. Not a story of revenge, but of redemption. Not a tale of destruction, but of creation. Arya Blackwood had been destroyed. But from her ashes, the Silver Luna had risen. And she would never bow to anyone again. The end. As the summit dissolved into intense discussions and political maneuvering, Arya found herself standing in the garden where she had once harvested herbs. So much had changed. She had changed. It was a good speech, Rowan said, materializing from the shadows. You resisted the call for pure revenge. I'm proud of you. I almost didn't, Arya admitted. Part of me wanted to destroy them all, wanted Marcus to suffer the way I suffered. But you didn't. You chose justice over vengeance, building over destroying. That's wisdom. Arya smiled, touching her silver scars. These marks used to be symbols of shame. Now they're reminders of what I survived, what I became. I wouldn't erase them even if I could. The best scars tell stories of battles won, Rowan agreed. Behind them, Arya heard footsteps. She turned to find Cole, Sage, Grey, and dozens of other sanctuary wolves emerging from the forest where they'd been waiting. We're ready to go home, Cole said, grinning. Back to Silverhaven? Back home, Arya confirmed. Then she paused, looking at the packlands one last time. Elena, she called, spotting her old friend at the garden's edge. Elena rushed over, tears streaming down her face. You're alive. I thought, when they said Victoria killed you, I wanted to die. I tried to find you, tried to. I know, Arya hugged her tightly. You were the only one who tried to defend me. I never forgot that. Come with us, she offered. Silverhaven will always have a place for you. We'll have different rules, different values. Strength won't be the only thing that matters. Justice, compassion, and truth will have equal weight. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some alphas looked intrigued, others scandalized. You can't just create a pack, one alpha protested. The council must approve. I'm not asking for approval, Arya interrupted, her power pressing down on the room. I'm Silver Luna. My bloodline predates your council by centuries. I'm telling you what will be. She softened slightly. But I'm also offering partnership. Any wolf who feels they've been unjustly treated by their pack can come to Silverhaven. We'll investigate their claims. If they're truly innocent, we'll give them sanctuary. If they're guilty, we'll send them back for proper justice. You're proposing to undermine pack authority, another alpha growled. I'm proposing to hold packs accountable, Arya corrected. For too long, alphas have had absolute power with no consequences. You banished innocence, abused the weak, and hidden behind tradition to excuse cruelty. That ends now. She let her power flare, making her point unmistakable. I'm not your enemy unless you make me one. Rule justly, treat your pack members with dignity, and you'll never hear from me. But harm innocence, abuse your power, and you'll discover that Silver Luna remembers. And she has a very long reach. The threat hung in the air. The alphas exchanged glances, weighing their options. Finally, the eldest among them, Alpha Gerard of the Western Mountains, spoke. The Silver bloodline was once respected as advisors and mediators. Perhaps it's time that tradition returned. He inclined his head respectfully. Silver Haven will be recognized. And we will mind our conduct more carefully. Others nodded, some more reluctantly than others. But they understood the implicit message: a new power had emerged, and antagonizing it would be foolish. The final farewell. As the summit dissolved into. Arya looked at him, really looked at him. Once, this man had been everything to her. His smile had made her heart race. His touch had felt like coming home. She had imagined growing old with him, building a life together. That version of Arya was dead, burned away in the wasteland's harsh crucible. I forgive you, she said softly, and saw hope bloom in his eyes. But I don't want you. The hope died, replaced by devastation. You taught me an important lesson, Marcus. You showed me that love without courage is worthless. That promises me nothing without action. And that I can't build my happiness on someone who'll crumble the moment it's tested. I've changed, Marcus protested desperately. These 3 years, I've realized my mistakes. I've tried to be a better alpha, to rule with justice instead of just strength. I could be better for you. I believe you, Arya said. I think you have changed. But it doesn't matter, because I've changed too. I'm not the woman who needed your love to feel complete. I found my own strength, my own purpose, my own worth. And I won't give that up, not even for you. She touched his face gently, one last time. Find someone who makes you brave, Marcus. Someone who inspires you to be better, not someone you betray when things get difficult. And try to forgive yourself, even if I can't give you what you want. Marcus closed his eyes, leaning into her touch for just a moment. What will you do now? Arya's choice. Arya stepped back and turned to face the assembled alphas, her voice ringing with authority. I'm going to build something new. The wasteland isn't empty anymore. It's become a sanctuary for those the packs have discarded, those who were judged unworthy, those who were betrayed by the system that was supposed to protect them. She raised her voice, making sure every wolf in the hall heard her clearly. I'm establishing the Silver Haven Pack. A territory for outcasts, for those who don't fit the traditional pack structure. And I could end you with a thought. But she didn't. Instead, she turned to the assembled alphas. Victoria Nightshade is guilty of murder, poisoning, fraud, and countless other crimes. I leave her punishment to the Alpha Council. But I want it known that justice delayed is still justice. And those who abuse their power will always, eventually, face consequences. The alphas nodded, several already moving to restrain Victoria. Her father, Alpha Supreme Dominic, sat frozen at one of the tables, his political dynasty crumbling before his eyes. Marcus's devastation. After Victoria had been taken away, Marcus stood alone in the center of the hall, surrounded by alphas but utterly isolated. Arya watched him for a long moment, feeling nothing but emptiness where love used to live. Finally, she walked over to him. Up close, she could see how much he'd aged, how guilt and regret had carved themselves into his features. Arya, he breathed. I can't. Words fail you? She asked, not unkindly. Good. They should. I'm sorry, Marcus whispered. God, I'm so sorry. I was weak. I chose duty and political advantage over you. Over truth. I watched them hurt you and did nothing. I let them throw you away like garbage, and I told myself it was necessary for the pack. It was easier, Arya corrected. Easier to believe the lies than fight for the truth. Easier to keep Victoria happy than defend the woman you claimed to love. Tears streamed down Marcus's face. I did love you. I still. He reached for her hand, but she stepped back. Don't, she said firmly. You loved me when it was convenient. when it cost you nothing. The moment I needed you to be brave, to stand up for me, to choose me over ambition, you failed. I know, Marcus sobbed. I know, and I'll regret it every day for the rest of my life. Please, Arya. Is there any way you could forgive me? The mate bond was severed, but maybe we could try again? Weaken his will. Make him easy to manipulate. And who had access to his medications? Victoria's voice was shrill now, desperate. You did. You were the healer. I was, Arya acknowledged. Which is why it was so easy to frame me. But I wasn't the only one with access. She nodded to Cole, who entered carrying a small wooden box. We found this hidden in the Luna's private chambers, Cole announced. Shadow root, carefully measured doses, and a journal detailing administration dates. Victoria lunged for the box, but Marcus caught her wrist. His eyes were wild, devastated, and furious all at once. Tell me it's not true, he demanded, his voice breaking. Tell me you didn't kill my father. Victoria's downfall. Victoria's mask finally cracked completely. He was going to refuse the marriage, she screamed. He didn't think I was suitable for his precious son. He was going to reject the alliance and ruin everything. The hall went silent at her admission. Your father was right, Arya said quietly. You weren't suitable. You were a manipulator, a murderer, someone who destroyed anyone in her path to power. I did what I had to do. Victoria's composure shattered like glass. You think being strong is enough? You think playing by their rules gets you anywhere? I had to scheme, manipulate, remove obstacles. That's how you survive in this world. No, Marcus said, and his voice was hollow with grief. That's how you destroy it. He released Victoria's wrist and stepped back, his face hardening. Victoria Nightshade, I reject you as my mate and my Luna. I revoke all bonds between us. Victoria gasped as the mate bond, never as strong as a fated connection but real nonetheless, severed. She fell to her knees, clutching her chest. You'll regret this, she hissed at Arya. You think you've won? You're still nothing but. Choose your next words carefully, Arya warned, silver light flaring dangerously. I'm not the scared Omega you tortured anymore. I am Silver Luna. You demand nothing, Arya said, her power filling the room, pressing down on everyone present. Even the Alphas felt the weight of it, the absolute authority. I am Silver Luna, descended from those who advised kings, who saw truth in darkness, who judged the worthy from the corrupt. And I judge you, Victoria Nightshade, guilty. The chess game unfolds. Where's your proof? Marcus demanded, though doubt colored his voice now. He was looking at Victoria with new eyes, remembering small things that hadn't added up before. Gray, Arya called, and the elderly wolf entered, carrying a leather case. Show them. Gray opened the case, revealing carefully preserved documents. Pack records from 5 territories, he announced. All documenting suspicious deaths, crimes, and accusations surrounding Victoria Nightshade and her family. I was a record keeper for 40 years before my banishment. I know authentic documents when I see them. He laid them out methodically, and several Alphas moved forward to examine them. Arya watched their expressions change as they read, saw belief replacing doubt. These could be forgeries, Victoria protested, but her voice was weaker now. Test them, Arya suggested. Use whatever verification methods you choose. They're real, and we both know it. She turned to Marcus. Your father wasn't dying from poisoning, not the kind I was accused of. But someone was slowly poisoning him. Someone who needed him weak, compliant, willing to approve a marriage alliance he originally opposed. Marcus's face crumbled. No. Father approved our marriage willingly. He said. What did he say, Marcus? Try to remember. Was he lucid? Was he himself? The Alpha's hands clenched into fists as memory clearly washed over him. He was confused. tired. But I thought it was just his illness. It was poisoning, Arya said more gently. Slow, careful doses of shadow root mixed with his medication. It wouldn't kill quickly, but it would cloud his judgment. Arya Blackwood? Victoria finished, her voice sharp. But there was fear in her eyes now, quickly masked. Impossible. The wasteland would have killed you within days. Would have, Arya agreed pleasantly. If I'd been the weak Omega you all believed I was. But it turns out I'm something quite different. She raised her hands, and silver light danced across her palms. Surprise. The reaction was instantaneous. Alphas backed away, their wolves recognizing ancient power. Older wolves, those who remembered stories passed down through generations, began to whisper in awe and fear. Silver blood, someone breathed. She's Silver Luna. Impossible, another argued. That line died out centuries ago. Clearly not, Arya said, her smile growing colder. Seems someone forgot to tell my ancestors they were supposed to be extinct. Sloppy record keeping, really. Marcus seemed to recover some of his composure, though his hands shook at his sides. Even if you are what you claim, you were banished. You're not welcome here. Banished for a crime I didn't commit, Arya corrected. She turned to address the assembled alphas. I was framed for attempting to poison Alpha Thomas. Scarred, tortured, and thrown into the wasteland to die. All because I stood in someone's way. You're a liar, Victoria snapped, but her voice lacked conviction. Am I? Arya's eyes fixed on Victoria, and silver light flared. Tell me, Luna Victoria, how many mates have you had before Marcus? Victoria's face twisted. That's none of. 3, Arya answered her own question, her voice ringing with power that compelled truth. 3 previous mates. 1 died of mysterious poisoning. 1 became mysteriously mentally disabled after drinking tea you prepared. 1 simply disappeared after rejecting you. Should I continue? The hall exploded with noise. Alphas shouted questions, demanding answers. Victoria's face was a mask of fury and panic. This is slander, she shrieked. I demand. You demand nothing. Released just a touch of her power. Their eyes glazed, and they stepped aside without question. She walked into the great hall, and the effect was immediate. Conversations died mid-sentence. Heads turned. Even the musicians faltered in their playing. Because Arya Blackwood, the discarded Omega, had become something magnificent. The silver scars on her face glowed like moonlit tattoos. Her silver brown eyes held depths of power that made even alphas look away uncomfortably. And the energy radiating from her was unlike anything they had felt before. Who is that? Someone whispered. I don't recognize her scent. Is she an alpha? She must be, but from which territory? Marcus stood frozen, his face pale. Even from across the room, Arya felt his shock, his confused recognition. The mate bond had been severed, but alphas had good memories for scents, for faces. He knew her, even transformed as she was, but his mind refused to accept the impossibility. Victoria's reaction was different. Her eyes narrowed, calculation replacing surprise almost immediately. Arya moved through the crowd like a predator through sheep. Wolves parted before her instinctively, submitting to a power they couldn't name. She walked straight to the center of the hall, where Marcus and Victoria stood. Forgive my late arrival, Arya said, her voice carrying across the silent hall. I heard there was a celebration. Justice delayed, but never denied. She smiled, showing teeth. I thought it was time for truth to join the party. Marcus's recognition. Who are you? Marcus demanded, trying to sound authoritative but failing to hide the tremor in his voice. Arya tilted her head, letting the light catch her scars. You don't recognize me, Alpha Marcus? I'm hurt. Though I suppose the last time you saw me, I was bleeding on your floor, begging for mercy you didn't provide. The hall erupted in gasps and shocked murmurs. Marcus's face went from pale to ashen. "No," he whispered. "You're dead. You can't." The dramatic entrance. The Grand Alpha Summit was even more extravagant than Arya had imagined. The Crimson Moon Pack's great hall had been transformed into a palace of light and luxury. Crystal chandeliers hung from the vaulted ceiling, imported at great expense. Tables groaned under the weight of elaborate feast preparations. Alphas from 20 different packs mingled, their finest warriors standing at attention, their lunas adorned in expensive gowns and jewelry. And at the center of it all stood Marcus and Victoria, greeting their guests with practiced smiles. Arya watched from the forest edge, hidden by shadows and the cloaking magic Rowan had taught her. Marcus looked older than she remembered, more tired. Being Alpha had aged him, carved lines around his eyes and mouth. But he was still handsome, still commanding in his formal attire. Victoria, by contrast, seemed to glow with satisfaction. Her blonde hair was styled elaborately, her gown cost more than most wolves earned in a year, and she wore an ornate Luna crown that caught the light with every movement. "She's marked the territory well," Cole observed, standing beside Arya. "Everyone knows who's in charge here." "Perfect," Arya murmured. "The higher the pedestal, the harder the fall." She turned to address her group, 50 wolves who had practiced this plan until it was flawless. "Remember, we move on my signal. No violence unless absolutely necessary. We're here to expose truth, not start a war." They nodded, determination in every face. These wolves had suffered under the pack system's corruption. Tonight was for all of them. Arya stepped out of the shadows, and her group followed. But she walked alone at the front, her appearance altered by subtle magic. She had changed her hair color to pure silver, worn an elegant black dress that seemed to shimmer like starlight, and masked her scent enough that pack wolves wouldn't immediately recognize her. The guards at the entrance moved to stop her, but she. The documents. Found powerful wolves, seduced them, eliminated rivals, and then consolidated power. Marcus is just her latest victim. He chose her over you, Sage reminded her quietly. He let them scar you and throw you away. I know, Arya said, her voice hard. And he'll answer for that. But Victoria is the architect of this particular evil. She needs to be stopped before she destroys more lives. Return preparation. 3 years after being thrown into the wasteland, Arya stood at the border of pack lands, looking toward the territory that had once been her home. She was 23 years old now, but she felt ancient, weighted with knowledge and power that had transformed her into someone unrecognizable from the shy healer she'd once been. Behind her stood 50 wolves, all outcasts, all loyal to the cause she'd built. They weren't the strongest warriors or the most powerful wolves. But they were determined, organized, and led by someone whose power could rival any alpha. Are you ready? Rowan asked. The ancient sage had agreed to accompany her, curious to see how this would unfold. Arya touched the silver scars on her face, remembering the pain, the betrayal, the despair. Then she thought of Cole, Sage, Grey, and all the others who had found hope in her sanctuary. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about changing a broken system. I'm ready, she said. It's time the Crimson Moon Pack learned that what they threw away was precious beyond measure. And time Marcus and Victoria faced the consequences of their choices. Remember, Rowan cautioned, revenge is a poison that harms the one who carries it as much as the one it's meant for. Don't lose yourself in darkness. I won't, Arya promised. I'm not seeking revenge. I'm seeking justice. There's a difference. She took a deep breath and stepped across the border. The wards that prevented banished wolves from returning should have burned her, should have sent agony through her body. Instead, as Arya entered her second year in the wasteland, her sanctuary grew. Word spread through the outcast communities of a silver Luna who offered protection and purpose. More wolves arrived, many bringing news from packed territories. That was how Arya learned that Alpha Thomas had died. The official story claimed complications from his poisoning, which made Arya's blood boil. Victoria had murdered him with her own poison, framed Arya for it, and now used his death to maintain her lie. Marcus was now Alpha of the Crimson Moon Pack. And Victoria was his Luna. They're hosting the Grand Alpha Summit this year, Cole reported, returning from a reconnaissance mission near Pack borders. Every Alpha from the region will attend. It's meant to be a celebration of Marcus and Victoria's first year of rule. Arya's mind immediately began forming a plan. The summit. Every important pack leader in one place. The perfect stage for exposing Victoria's crimes. I need proof, she said, pacing the main cavern. Victoria is too clever to have left obvious evidence. But everyone makes mistakes. Everyone has enemies. I might be able to help with that, Gray spoke up. The elderly wolf had been a record keeper before his banishment. Pack archives record everything: births, deaths, ceremonies, and territorial disputes. If Victoria has a history of manipulation, it would be documented somewhere. Can you access those records? Gray smiled grimly. I kept copies of everything before they banished me. Call it insurance. I have records going back 50 years for most major packs. Over the following months, they pieced together Victoria's history. It was uglier than Arya had imagined. 3 previous mates, all mysteriously dead or permanently disabled. 5 packs had rejected marriage alliances with her family after suspicious incidents. Even her own father, Alpha Supreme Dominic, had a reputation for ruthless political manipulation. She's done this before, Arya realized, reading through. Are being too weak to bear strong pups. An elderly wolf named Gray, who had dared to question his Alpha's decision to start a war. Each story fed the fire growing in Arya's heart. The pack system was broken, rotted from within by Alphas who valued power over justice, strength over mercy. What if it didn't have to be this way, she asked Rowan one night as they sat around a fire with a dozen outcasts. What if someone challenged the system? Many have tried, Rowan said quietly. All have failed. The Alpha Council is too powerful, too entrenched. Maybe they tried alone, Arya said, looking around at the faces illuminated by firelight. What if we stopped being separate outcasts and became something else? Something unified? Cole leaned forward, interest sparking in his eyes. You're talking about forming a pack? Here? Not a pack, Arya corrected. Something new. A sanctuary for those the packs have thrown away. A place where strength isn't the only thing that matters, where justice actually means something. Pretty words, Sage said bitterly. But words don't change reality. No, Arya agreed. Power does. And I'm growing stronger every day. Strong enough to protect those who can't protect themselves. Strong enough to make the packs think twice before they casually destroy innocent lives. She stood, and as she did, silver light flickered across her skin, making her scars glow bright in the darkness. Every eye fixed on her, wide with awe and growing hope. I'm not asking you to follow me, Arya said. I'm asking if you want to stop being victims. If you want to build something better than what the packs have. If you're willing to stand up and say, never again. Silence fell over the group. Then Cole stood, placing his fist over his heart in a gesture of loyalty. I'm with you. One by one, others stood. By the end of the night, Arya had 23 wolves pledged to her cause. It wasn't an army, but it was a beginning. The plan forms. As Arya entered her. Recognizing herself. The scars Victoria had carved into her face were still there, but they had changed. Instead of ugly, angry red wounds, they had become thin silver lines that glowed faintly in certain light, tracing elegant patterns across her features like ceremonial markings. Her eyes, once a simple brown, now held flecks of silver that caught the light. Her hair, previously mousy brown, had deepened to rich auburn with natural silver streaks running through it. Even her bone structure seemed different, more refined, as if the power inside her was remaking her from within. The transformation is complete, Rowan observed, appearing behind her. You are no longer the Omega healer they discarded. You are Silver Luna reborn, more powerful than your ancestors because you carry both the old magic and the strength forged by surviving betrayal. Arya touched her face, tracing the silver scars. Where once they had been marks of shame, now they felt like badges of honor. She had survived. She had transformed. And she was no longer anyone's victim. Building alliances. As Arya's first year in the wasteland drew to a close, Rowan began taking her beyond the cave system to meet others who dwelled in the cursed lands. She was surprised to discover that the wasteland wasn't as empty as the packs believed. Outcasts lived here. Wolves who had been banished for various reasons, many unjustly. Rogues who had left their packs rather than submit to corrupt leadership. Even some humans who had stumbled through the barrier and somehow survived. Why do they stay? Arya asked as they walked through a small settlement built into a canyon. Where else would they go? Rowan replied. Cross back into Packlands, and they'll be killed on sight. The wasteland may be harsh, but at least here they're free. Arya met wolves whose stories echoed her own. A young man named Cole, who had been banished for refusing to kill a rival pack member in cold blood. A woman named Sage, thrown out for individuals, could strengthen pack bonds or sever them entirely. This made them invaluable, but also threatening to those who ruled through deception. Is that why they were hunted? Arya asked, practicing her ability to sense emotions by reading Rowan's carefully controlled aura. Yes. 2 centuries ago, a corrupt Alpha Council orchestrated the systematic execution of all silver blood wolves. They spread lies that your ancestors were witches, that their power was unnatural. In truth, they simply feared exposure of their own crimes. Arya felt anger burning in her chest. How many innocents had died because of fear and greed? How much knowledge had been lost? But some survived, she said. A handful escaped and went into hiding. They suppressed their abilities, forbade their children from using them. Over generations, the power faded, became dormant. Until you. Why me? Arya wondered aloud. Why did my power awaken when others didn't? Rowan's expression grew thoughtful. Extreme trauma can break seals that were never meant to be permanent. Your rejection, the severing of your mate bond, the physical torture, and the near-death experience, it shattered every barrier your ancestors had built. Your power didn't just awaken, child. It exploded. The physical transformation. 6 months into her training, Arya noticed changes beyond her growing magical abilities. Her body was transforming. The poor food and hard life in her old pack had kept her thin and weak. But here, with Rowan's guidance and the magical energy she channeled daily, she grew stronger. Her muscles became lean and powerful. Her reflexes sharpened to supernatural levels. Even her senses heightened beyond normal werewolf abilities. She could hear a rabbit's heartbeat from 100 yards away, could track scents that were days old. But the most dramatic change came to her face. One morning, Arya caught her reflection in the underground pool that served as their water source. She gasped, hardly. Training in exile. 3 months had passed since Rowan had rescued Arya from the wasteland. 3 months of grueling training, of pushing her body and mind beyond limits she never knew existed. The cave system Rowan called home extended deep into the mountains, filled with ancient chambers where magic still pulsed in the very stones. Again. Rowan commanded as Arya struggled to maintain the shield of silver light around herself. Sweat poured down her face, and her muscles trembled with exhaustion. I can't, she gasped, and the shield flickered and died. Rowan's expression remained stern. Can't, or won't? In battle, there is no difference. Both lead to death. Arya wanted to snap back, but she knew Rowan was right. She took a deep breath, centered herself, and tried again. This time, the silver light came easier, wrapping around her like a second skin. Better, Rowan acknowledged. But you're still thinking of it as separate from yourself. The power isn't something you wield, Arya. It's part of who you are. Stop trying to control it and simply be it. Easy for an ancient sage to say, Arya thought. But she kept practicing, kept pushing. Because every time her concentration wavered, every time doubt crept in, she remembered Marcus's cold eyes as he rejected her. She remembered Victoria's triumphant smile as the blade cut into her face. She remembered the pack's bloodlust as they threw her away like garbage. That memory fueled her through every impossible task Rowan set before her. The ancient teachings. As weeks turned to months, Arya learned that the Silver Luna bloodline possessed abilities far beyond normal werewolves. Rowan taught her to sense the emotional states of others, to read the threads of connection between pack members, to identify lies by the disturbance they created in the air itself. The Silver Lunas were advisors to kings, Rowan explained during one lesson. They could sense betrayal before it happened, could identify the true character of diluting their bloodline until it seemed to disappear. But I have no power, Arya protested. I'm just an ordinary healer. Your power was dormant, sealed by generations of fear and hiding. But betrayal, pain, and near death have awakened it. Rowan held up a hand, and silver light danced across their palm. The same power flows in you now. Can't you feel it? Arya closed her eyes and searched within herself. And there, beneath the pain and grief, she felt something new. A warmth, a power, something that responded to her attention by surging through her veins like liquid moonlight. Her eyes flew open, and she gasped as silver light flickered across her own hands. What is this? She whispered in awe and fear. This is your birthright, Rowan said. Your true heritage. And if you're willing to learn, I will teach you to wield it. The Silver Luna line was feared because they could do more than heal. They could enhance or weaken others' abilities, could sense truth from lies, could even manipulate the mate bond itself. Arya thought of Marcus, of Victoria, of the pack that had betrayed her. She thought of the injustice, the lies, the cruelty. Teach me, she said, her voice hardening with determination. Teach me everything. Rowan's smile widened. Good. But know this, child. Once you walk this path, you cannot return to who you were. The power will change you, transform you. You must decide now, will you use this power for revenge, or for something greater? Arya looked at her hands, watching the silver light dance across her scarred palms. She thought about everything she had lost, everyone who had failed her. But she also thought about Elena, who had tried to defend her. About the innocent members of the pack who would suffer under Victoria's manipulation. I don't know yet, she answered honestly. But I know I won't die here in the wasteland, forgotten and broken. I will rise. And they will all know my name. Moonlight. But before it could reach her, a figure stepped between them. Tall and cloaked in shadow, the stranger moved with inhuman speed, dispatching the creature with a wave of their hand that sent it flying backward into a tree. More creatures attacked, but the stranger dealt with each one effortlessly. Arya watched through failing consciousness as the figure turned to her, reaching down with glowing hands. Rest now, child of silver blood, an ancient voice spoke, neither male nor female but something else entirely. Your story is far from over. The betrayed shall rise, and those who wronged you shall learn the true meaning of regret. Arya felt warmth spreading through her body, dulling the pain, pulling her into deep sleep. Her last conscious thought was confusion about those words. Silver blood? What did that mean? The awakening of power. When Arya woke, she was in a cave, lying on soft furs, warm and surprisingly comfortable. Her wounds had been cleaned and bandaged, though she could still feel the tender new scars on her face. A fire crackled nearby, and the strange figure from before sat beside it, hood now pulled back. The person before her was ancient, their features neither young nor old, masculine nor feminine. Their eyes glowed with silvery light, and their long hair seemed to shimmer with stars. Who are you? Arya managed to ask, her voice hoarse. I am Rowan, the last of the elder sages, they replied. I have lived in this wasteland for 300 years, waiting for one of silver blood to arrive. And now, you are here. I don't understand. Silver blood? I'm nobody, just a healer from a minor bloodline. Rowan smiled gently. That is what you were told. But I can sense what flows through your veins. You are descended from the Silver Luna line, the most powerful healers and magic wielders in werewolf history. Your ancestors were hunted to extinction 2 centuries ago because other packs feared their power. But some survived, hiding their gifts. Useless. Victoria herself stepped forward with a silver blade, heated in the ceremonial fire. This is for daring to reach above your station, Victoria whispered, her voice too low for others to hear. Marcus was never meant for someone like you. He's mine, and I'll destroy anyone who threatens that. The blade came down, and Arya's screams echoed through the hall as 3 deep cuts were carved across her face, from forehead to chin. The silver burned, ensuring the scars would never fully heal, even with her werewolf healing abilities. Through her tears and pain, Arya looked one last time at Marcus. He stood frozen, his face pale, his hands clenched at his sides. For a moment, she thought she saw regret in his eyes. But he did nothing. He said nothing. That hurt worse than the blade. Abandoned in the wasteland. They threw her through the territory border that night, into the forbidden wasteland where even the bravest wolves feared to tread. The land was cursed, they said, poisoned by ancient magic from wars long forgotten. Nothing good grew there, and the creatures that dwelled in its shadows were twisted, hungry things. Arya lay where they had thrown her, blood seeping from her face wounds, her body battered from the warrior's rough handling. The moon above was full and bright, mocking her with its beauty while she lay dying. I'm sorry, she whispered to no one, to the universe, to the moon goddess herself. I don't understand what I did to deserve this. Her wolf, who had been silent since the rejection, whimpered in the back of her mind. The poor creature was as broken as Arya herself, confused and in pain. As her vision began to blur, Arya saw shapes moving in the darkness. Wasteland creatures, drawn by the smell of blood. She tried to move, to run, but her body wouldn't cooperate. This was it, then. This was how she would die, alone and betrayed, in a cursed land far from home. One of the creatures lunged at her, its teeth bared and eyes glowing red in the Marcus, but I would never hurt his father. Please, you have to believe me. But she could see it in their faces. The doubt, the suspicion, the willingness to believe the worst. She was just a healer, and nobody from a minor bloodline. Victoria was the daughter of an Alpha Supreme, soon to be their Luna. Who would they believe? I have witnesses, Victoria continued, who saw Arya near the Alpha's chambers the night before he fell ill. She was carrying that very jar of herbs. I was delivering medicine for his joint pain. Arya protested. He asked me to prepare it. So you admit you gave him something? Victoria's smile was triumphant. Alpha Thomas tried to speak, but his voice was weak, and his words were unclear. Marcus stood beside Victoria, his face unreadable. Arya looked to him, pleading silently for him to defend her, to remember who she was. But Marcus remained silent. The brutal punishment. The evidence is clear, Alpha Thomas's beta announced when the Alpha couldn't continue. Arya Blackwood has betrayed the pack that sheltered her, trained her, and gave her purpose. For the crime of attempting to murder our Alpha, the punishment is death. Gasps echoed through the hall. Arya felt her world tilting, her vision darkening at the edges. However, Victoria spoke up, her voice dripping with false mercy. I believe death is too quick, too kind for such a betrayal. I propose an alternative. She walked closer to Arya, her eyes gleaming with malicious satisfaction. Scar her face, mark her as a traitor so that everyone will know her crime. Then banish her to the forbidden wasteland. Let her survive there if she can. Let nature deliver the judgment. No. Elena cried out from the crowd. This is wrong. Arya is innocent. But her voice was drowned out by others who agreed with Victoria's suggestion. The bloodlust was up, and the pack wanted justice, even if it was false justice. Arya was dragged to the center of the hall. She fought, screamed, begged, but it was knees, clutching her chest as the bonds severed with cruel finality. Do you accept this rejection? Marcus asked, his voice carrying the weight of formal ritual. Through her pain, Arya looked up at him. The man she loved, who had promised her forever under the stars, now looked at her as if she were a stranger. Behind him, Victoria smiled, a cold, calculating expression that sent chills down Arya's spine. I accept, Arya whispered, and felt something inside her shatter completely. The poisoning accusation. 3 days later, Arya remained in her small cottage, nursing her broken heart and the physical pain of the severed bond. She barely ate, barely slept, existing in a fog of grief and disbelief. A harsh pounding on her door shattered the silence. Before she could answer, pack warriors burst into her home, their faces hard and accusing. Arya Blackwood, you are under arrest for the attempted murder of Alpha Thomas, the head warrior declared. What? No, I would never, Arya protested, but rough hands were already grabbing her arms, dragging her from her home. They brought her to the great hall, where the entire pack had assembled once again. But this time, the atmosphere was hostile, angry. Alpha Thomas lay on a raised platform, his face pale and sweating, clearly ill. We found these in your cottage, Victoria announced, holding up a jar of Arya's healing herbs. Nightshade root, prepared and ground. The same poison that was slipped into the Alpha's tea. Those are healing herbs. Arya cried out. Yes, nightshade is among them, but in proper doses, it treats inflammation and pain. I would never use them to harm anyone. Convenient excuse, Victoria said smoothly. You're the pack healer. You have access to all manner of poisons. And you have motive. She turned to address the crowd. Everyone knows Marcus rejected her. A woman scorned, seeking revenge on the family that denied her. That's not true. Arya struggled against the warriors holding her. I love. Arya stood near the back, her heart pounding with anticipation. She had worn her best dress, a simple blue gown that Elena insisted brought out her eyes. She clutched a small bundle of herbs she had prepared as a welcome gift for Marcus. Marcus entered the hall, but he wasn't alone. Beside him walked a woman of stunning beauty. She was tall, with flowing blonde hair and an air of confidence that commanded attention. Her expensive clothes spoke of wealth and power. This is Victoria Nightshade, Marcus announced, his voice carrying across the silent hall. Daughter of Alpha Supreme Dominic Nightshade of the Northern Territories. She is my chosen mate. The words hit Arya like a physical blow. She felt her knees weaken, the bundle of herbs slipping from her trembling fingers. But the mate bond, someone from the crowd began. I have a fated mate, Marcus interrupted, his eyes scanning the crowd until they found Arya's. The look in them was cold, distant, nothing like the warmth she remembered. But duty comes before personal desire. Our pack needs this alliance. Victoria brings strength, connections, and power that will elevate the Crimson Moon pack above all others. Arya couldn't breathe. She watched as Marcus's gaze finally settled on her, and she saw the truth there. He had made his choice, and it wasn't her. Arya Blackwood, Marcus called out, his voice formal and detached. Please step forward. Her legs moved automatically, carrying her through the parting crowd. She could feel every eye on her, could hear the whispers starting. When she reached the center, she stood before Marcus, her head held high despite the tears threatening to fall. I, Marcus Redwood, son of Alpha Thomas, hereby reject you as my fated mate. I choose duty and pack prosperity over the mate bond. The rejection hit her like fire in her veins. The mate bond, which had been a gentle warmth in her chest, suddenly burned and twisted, causing physical pain that made her gasp. She fell to her. The healer's secret love. The morning sun painted the Crimson Moon pack's healing house in shades of gold and amber. Arya Blackwood knelt in her herb garden, her fingers gentle as she harvested moonflower petals. Each petal was precious, capable of soothing even the most stubborn fevers. She placed them carefully in her woven basket, her heart lighter than usual. Today was special. Today, Marcus would return from his diplomatic mission to the neighboring territories. Marcus Redwood, the Alpha's son, with his warm brown eyes and gentle smile that made her heart race. For 3 years, they had shared secret glances, stolen moments in the forest, whispered promises under the stars. "You're glowing again," her friend Elena teased, appearing at the garden gate with a knowing smile. "Let me guess, the young Alpha returns today?" Aria's cheeks flushed pink. "Is it that obvious?" "Only to everyone with eyes," Elena laughed. "But be careful, Aria. The pack elders have been whispering about suitable matches for Marcus. Strong bloodlines, political alliances, you know how it goes." "Marcus doesn't care about those things," Aria said softly, though doubt crept into her voice. "He told me that what matters is the mate bond, not politics." Elena's expression grew serious. "I hope you're right, my friend." "I truly do." The rejection ceremony. That evening, the entire pack gathered in the great hall. Banners of crimson and gold hung from the wooden beams, and the air buzzed with excitement. Alpha Thomas Redwood stood at the center, his commanding presence silencing the crowd. "My son has returned," the Alpha announced, his voice booming with pride. "And he brings with him momentous news that will strengthen our pack for generations to come."